All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast, and we got a very special episode for you today. Ben and I are chatting to an elite professional footballer from the Essendon Football Club. His name's Kyle Langford, and he gives us a very interesting peek into the world of a professional sportsman. We talk about the highs, and we also talk about the potential lows. But what else do we cover, Ben?
Well, Bryce, we talk about a property story that also has defence as a great example of why you have it and why you reduce risk. And then finally, the RBA rate call, the big rate call was early this week. We're going to talk about briefly what that means for property.
All right, folks, let's rip into the show.
Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance, and money management.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast, and we've got a very exciting episode today. But before we get there, hello, Ben. How are you, mate?
Mate, always great to be here. Love these days. Loves Thursdays. Love recording the pod. So big day, though. We've got a very special guest, haven't we?
We do have a very special guest. Now, for those people who have been on the journey with us for a long time, they'll know that we have a bit of a strong interest in AFL footy. So the fact that we're today got a very special guest from the AFL world, Ben, would say it's a bit of an understatement that we're excited. So his name's Kyle Langford. He is the star of the Essendon forward line and a very, very good leader and loves property as well, Ben. So looking forward to having that conversation. But before we get there, at what's making property news today, we're going to talk about the big call that was made earlier in the week, Ben. The big
RBA call, and we're going to talk about the consequences for the property market. So that's also exciting. And we also obviously started the new year for us as well, and we're in the hunt for a buyer's agent.
We are. So if anyone is listening to this, and we obviously an investment paradigm business, but a lot of our clients say, hey, listen, I know you buy investment properties, but we need a buyer's agent to help us buy our home. And we're like, oh, okay, no problem. So we are looking for a very specific buyer's agent who is interested in helping those people buy their dream home. Different sort of mindset, different sort of paradigm shift, but equally as appealing, Ben. I've done both. I do the home buyers on the television and I do investors when I'm not on the television. But so if that's you or you know someone who might be interested, if you could reach out to us, there'll be a link on the screen here or there'll be a link in the show notes.
There'll be a link in the show notes to the job ad on the website. So yes, if that's you, you're an experienced buyer's agent, love buying properties and the emotional journey that people go on when they're buying their homes, we'd love to hear from you.
It's a cool one, folks. It's a very, very cool one. Hey, my mindset minute theme today, before we get to our very special guest, is you know how Instagram or all social media have their own algorithm that shows you more of what you're interested in, Ben? I saw this come across my radar and I loved it, right? Because it says just like how Instagram has its own algorithm and shows you more of what you're interested in, the entire universe also has an algorithm and shows you more of what you are thinking, feeling, and focusing on. And the reason I love that is because it's a friend of mine for me, because I have how I'm always interested in personal development, Ben, and getting outside mentors and coaches. I've got a new coach based out of the US, and his mantra is your focus becomes your reality, right? So if you look at that before, it says the algorithm shows you more of what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're focusing on. And unfortunately for a lot of people, they're focusing on stuff that they don't want rather than focusing on what they do want. I've even looked at that in my own world, in my own personal property investing, Ben, because I've wanted to be a property investor for a long time. But I think all of the success that I've achieved up until recently has been as a result of avoiding what I don't want rather than being super clear on what I do want. So now I focus on the end results, and that creates tension. And for those of you at home listening, if you can imagine a lackey band between your two index fingers, the more tension you can create towards what you want, that tension will seek resolution. And generally, if you don't let your beliefs and your negative thought patterns get in the way, it'll move you towards what you want. So if you think about, for us, 3,000 a week. Well, if you want 3,000 a week, that's all you focus on. You picture on what that is, and you just do what your next step needs to be to get there.
Right.
Versus, oh, look, I grew up in a bad house, or I don't. And what will happen is that tension will collapse, and it will collapse towards your same belief. So this is seriously important stuff, and visualizing, and it's been the biggest change in mindset for me in the last 6 months, I must admit, and I'm already starting to see amazing results from it. So look out, folks. But I really liked it. So just like how Instagram has its own algorithm and shows you more of what you're interested in, the entire universe also has an algorithm and shows you more of what you are thinking, feeling, and focusing on. Thoughts, Ben?
Oh, look, I love it. I mean, again, what is it? You've always talked about that the body follows where the mind goes, right? So it's just the same sort of principle in the sense that, I've got this sort of really strong optimistic belief of things. I get frustrated when I see lack of efficiencies and productivities and how governments and politicians make silly decisions. But overall, I'm an optimist.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that belief that, we live in the best time of history ever. And then, the road ahead is incredibly optimistic around, basically what the future looks like with cures for cancer and effectively, how AI is going to really change the world. I'm super optimistic about that. So from that point of view, I think that's the sort of mindset that I like to take with me in terms of, it's absolutely today's the present, tomorrow's the future, all of those sort of wonderful sort of sayings. I love it.
Love it. Where your mind goes, your body follows. So folks, focus on your end results and see what the change that has. The universe will feed up in your mental algorithm the things that you are focusing on, which is really cool. Hey, let's waste no more time, Ben. Let's get to our very special guest who you and I recently had a conversation with. It was a far-ranging conversation around professional sport and money management and what people don't understand about professional athletes. It was a ripper chat. So let's cut to the conversation you and I recently had with Kyle Langford. All right, Ben, we've got a very special guest today on the Property Couch podcast. We're talking with Kyle Langford, who's a professional Aussie rules footballer with the Essendon Football Club in the AFL. He was recruited by Essendon with the 17th overall selection in the 2014 National Draft. He attended Ivanhoe Grammar School and represented both the Northern Knights and Vic Metro in the TAC Cup and AFL Under-18 Championships, respectively. He made his AFL debut against the St Kilda Football Club in Round 5, 2015. Away from footy, he recently became a first-time parent and also has a passion for property, which we are very keen to learn more about today. Welcome to the Property Couch, Kyle.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Hey, from the outside, being a professional athlete looks like a dream. I mean, fans, big stadiums, a great salary, and doing what you love. But I guess behind the highlights reel and the match day glory, there's a level of pressure and scrutiny that most people never see. If you could sit down with someone who believes it's all smooth sailing, what's the one thing that you'd want them to understand about the reality of a life in professional sport?
Yeah, I guess you put it in a pretty good way that, we do live a bit of a dream and, it's definitely my dream growing up. But you soon come to realise that, there's a lot that goes with that dream. It's not so much of a burden, but there's a lot of challenges and things that you have to learn at an early age. So if I'm trying to educate someone who probably looks at us a little bit differently, is that we're just human and we generally have the exact same problems as everyone else, whether that be relationships or financial or whatever it might be. But we're just humans at the end of the day. And I think the most challenging part is the scrutiny that we cop from media, from fans. Although, there's a little bit of banter in there and we always welcome that. But there is a limit to where that should go. And I think that's probably the thing that a lot of AFL footballers struggle with. Being so accessible over social media, in public, whatever it might be. But yeah, I'm not going to lie. I feel like I am living a dream and I've got the best job in the world, but it comes with its challenges as well.
Because when we chatted last week, I talked to you about that interview that I heard of Ben Graham, how he went from the Geelong Football Club, he went over to the NFL, and it was with Mark Howard on the Howie Games, and the absolute kick by kick pressure that they're on in the NFL is unbelievable, and I don't think it's to that degree, but it does come down to that sometimes because. I'd imagine. Clearly, I've never been a professional sportsman, but I'd imagine at some stages in the early part of your career, as you're lining up for goal or whatever, there'd be lots of external noise that's running through your head over and above just go through your routine and kick this ball.
Yeah, definitely. I think as a younger player, all you want to do is to come into the team. You want to play AFL football. You're there to play AFL, not VFL, and it's always probably one of the hardest things for a coaching group to be able to do is because you've got a list of 40 odd players. You generally got anywhere from 15 to 20 out of contract every other year. So you've got players that are playing for their contract, playing for their career, and then you've got players who, some are just there for the money as well. So it's been able to grab 40 odd players to come together to achieve a common goal. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things to be able to do. But it's always an interesting one. The pressure, the goals. I think the average career is only about 4 years, I think. So 4.5 years. So, for the average male footballer, you're finishing your career up at 22 years of age. And in a lot of ways, it's really hard because you haven't got a uni degree in that time. And if you don't want to go to uni and you want to do a trade, then you're a 22-year-old apprentice, and a lot of your mates might already have that jump start as well. So, it's always a difficult kind of one early on in your career.
Now, Cole, you talk about, obviously, what you're saying, you're only human beings as well, and I think people put you in a certain sort of mantle that's above that, but the reality is that's the case. So what are some of the, lessons you had in terms of repetition or mindset or things like that you worked on to break through for your first game and obviously to have the great career that you've already had?
Yeah, I was very fortunate that I played my debut game at about round 5, I think, in my first year. So I was very fortunate. I think I was emergency for the first 4 games, played round 5. I think I kicked 3 behinds, got dropped. We're actually versing Freo the next game, and James Hird came up to me and said, "You're too small to play against the big boys." So,
Yeah, the pressure's too big against that.
Yeah, so I didn't get there. I went over to Perth, but didn't get to play, and then I played the next week. But I think at Essendon as well was a difficult time as well, and I've spoken about this in other interviews. But with the whole saga that happened, we lost a lot of our senior players, which you bring in a lot of top-up players that are there for the money and to, really a bit of a joyride for some of them. So we lost a lot of that leadership in the 2016, 2017, 2018 years. So I definitely think a lot of us players had to grow up really quick. We were fortunate enough to play games at AFL because of what had happened. And there's a lot of mental resilience that occurs. I think my 3rd or 4th year I played about a year in the VFL. You're out of contract every 2nd year as well. So there's so much going on in your life, but it all comes back just to seriously just working your butt off and having some really good mentors in your corner.
Do you have any set routines like training routines or game routines that have served you well in terms of, again, your high performance story is for 120 minutes every weekend, right? High performance in investing and building wealth and money management, you can sort of, I suppose, cover over some of the mistakes that sometimes you get to make. But like you say, you've got 100,000 people potentially at the ground watching you, and then you might have several million people on TV watching. So is there any sort of things that you've trialed over your journey that sort of got you into the mindset that when you can switch on and switch off, between those sort of big moments when you have to be completely switched on?
Yeah, it's always a bit of a challenge, especially when you have some of the big games that we're very fortunate to be a part of. But I think AFL and being a professional athlete, you're a 24/7. It's a 24/7 job. It's what you eat, you sleep, your recovery. So I guess the routine that I've really fallen into the last couple of years pretty much works backwards from a game. I guess everyone sees 120 minutes on the weekend, but really it starts 7 days, almost, the first hour after your previous game. So, I just got a really good kind of recovery protocols. I'm huge about my sleep, massive about my sleep. So I'm very fortunate that my partner is on board with a lot of the things that I do, and we're very strict about our routine. And I guess we'll talk about the 3-month-old, and that's been a bit of a challenge throughout pre-season as well. But and then it's just a lot of the prep work you do. So at the start of the week, it's vision, it's meetings, it's scouting. I guess as a forward, scouting the defenders. There's a lot that goes into it, and I probably don't feel ready to go up until the day before a game, both physically and mentally.
Yeah,
there's a lot of prep work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Kyle, Ben and I want to talk to you about sport all day, every day, but we will weave it into the conversation. But we want to sort of go back to early days. And for the listeners, you are a podcast listener, so thanks for reaching out and having a chat with us. The money mindsets that you developed as a kid, did you have conversations with your parents about money over the dinner table?
Yeah, after you asked me this the other day, I had to go away and have a bit of a think about it. And I do remember distinctly my old man used to talk about debt. And it probably took me until a few years ago to really understand that. But his whole thing when I was younger, he used to talk about it, was he loved being in debt. And I guess as an 18, 19, 20-year-old, I couldn't really understand that. I'm like, why the hell would you want to get in debt owing money? But for him, being in debt meant he had something to work towards, and he had to show up to work, and he had to be successful, and he had to do all these certain things. He couldn't take his foot off the pulse kind of thing. So his whole thing was debt fueled him to become successful. And he worked in a bank early days, so he helped me a little bit with saving money early on, but there was never really conversations over the dinner table between my family about saving on money or property or anything like that. It's more become as I've got an older brother, a younger sister, and now we kind of talk about property pretty openly around the dinner table. And my old man's done very well. He's got about 5 properties now, and that's always kind of been a goal for him, to reach 5 properties. And now he's becoming, and I've told him to turn on Spotify and listen to your podcast, because he's at that age where he's nearing retirement and he's still got that debt, and he wants to be able to live the life that he wants to live, which is travel and play golf and all that kind of stuff. So he's working his way through that at the moment.
Did you know when he said he loved debt, was that just the principal place of residence mortgage that was spurring him on, or did he have properties early days when you were younger?
Yeah, so we had a holiday house down at Fairhaven, which he bought reasonably early on. So we used to go holiday down there a fair bit. But yeah, it was the principal place. It was a holiday house. He has a few commercial properties as well now. So yeah, I think it was just always, and he never really came for money. It's not, we're not a super wealthy family, but he pretty much, his whole journey was he was working at Esso Mobile or Esso Oil out in Essendon. I'm sure you guys know that back in the day. And he walked away from that job, and tried something different, which was selling an international brand of oil. So he really worked hard, and I guess we hear now that I'm a father as well, we share these stories. But there was a lot of times where he went without dinner, he went out without food at times, to make sure that all of us kids got everything that we needed and we wanted. And growing up, we always got our number one, gift at Christmas. So we never went without. But also, as a kid, you never realise those challenges and sacrifices that your parents actually have to make. And it's only now in the past couple of years that I'm really able to appreciate that.
Do you know what fired him up? What? Because he was an early pioneer, not pioneer, but he was pre YouTube and Google and podcasts.
Yep.
So do you know what was the draw towards that sort of investing paradigm for him?
Not necessarily, no. I think he's just always looked at property as a wealth vehicle, and he's always said that he's had a goal of 5 properties. That's what he wants to achieve in his life, and
maybe just exposure in the bank. He was just getting exposed to other clients.
Well, that as well, yeah. I think
as well.
He was always one of those guys that could just wheel off a phone number or a credit card, or he was just super, super good with numbers. And he went to a tech school, so he didn't go to uni. He didn't do anything like that. So I think it was just a lot of his own internal motivation.
So, Kyle, obviously you mentioned other siblings, and you all went to Ivanhoe Grammar, so that sort of private school. Did your mum and dad, or was there any of that sort of talk around other types of debt? So we talk about, what we're talking about now is productive debt, which is investment debt. But in terms of, the tolerable or the bad debt, was he using debt in other forms? Like, did he ever talk about, look, you all got your Christmas present that you just mentioned, but I've whacked them on the credit card, or I've put them on the equity line or something along those lines? Did he ever?
The old lay-by.
Yeah, all the old lay-by.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I remember lay-by. Yeah, no, we had lay-by at Rebel Sports. So,
yeah. Are you old enough to do lay-by? That's a long time ago.
No, I remember going into Rebel Sport and the cricket bat or footy lay-by or whatever. So
paying you $10 or $20 a week.
Yeah. So I'm not sure entirely, but I know with school I was lucky enough to get a scholarship. So was my sister. My older brother didn't want to go to a private school, so my older brother actually went to Viewbank College, and again, I was very fortunate to get that, and it wasn't until after I finished, I guess, school that I realised how hard it was actually paying school fees, and I'm now realising that I'm putting my daughter into wait lists, and I'm like, geez, there's so much money, and that's something you have to plan for. Because it's a massive expense, but I guess if you look at investment, it's investing in their future as well.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Knowing that I'm cutting the checks every quarter or half year, I'm like, hopefully.
Yeah, but I think I was all right. I had about a 50% scholarship. My sister was a little bit less, but because my dad was in oil fluctuates year on, year out, depending on what's happening with the international trade. So I know there was a number of years where China wasn't buying iron ore out of Australia, and that directly impacted him, which meant he wasn't getting the revenue and the income that he usually gets. And it's only as of now that I know he did it really hard for a bunch of years with school fees and debt, principal place investments, all that kind of stuff.
Did your mum work as well? What was her role?
Yeah, so mum worked roughly 3 days a week when we were kids, but she largely brought us up.
Yep.
So she was working in like a merchandising role.
So critical work, but unpaid work. Yeah.
Yeah. She was the taxi pretty much. Obviously I played football, played cricket growing up. You'd sport every single night of the week. My older brother played footy as well. And then my younger sister was athletics, volleyball. So, yeah, very active family.
Yeah, wow.
As we unpack people's stories, Kyle, we usually say, well, okay, when you started to get your own independence, your own first job, but you're quite unique because it's obviously clear that in your teenage years that you were gifted athletically. So you move into a drafted role still as a teenager. And then, so your first job is probably above, I'm making assumptions, aren't I? But above average income. And then you're surrounded by a ton of profile stuff that, no one gives you any playbook on how to play that out. So how did you start? Because we'll pivot towards your property story shortly, but how did you manage those first paychecks? And did you get surrounded by a lot of advisors who were keen to help you put it somewhere? What did that? Because I say that because I've been I've been chatting to the AFL Players Association over the journey, and I quickly worked out that it's the gatekeeper, which is the player manager, which is largely where it's at. And if you can't break that, you can't talk to the individual.
Yeah, I think there's a way to go within the industry with that kind of stuff. But I definitely, early days, my dad being in the bank, he just said, put 50% of your paycheck just away, put that in a savings account, don't even look at it. And the rest of the money, he said, mate, go live your life. You're 18. I was living at home in my first year, so I was not paying rent or bills or anything like that. Yeah, he was just all about just live your life. If you want to go on holiday, go on holiday. You've got the money, enjoy it. Don't be frugal with your money kind of thing. And he's always lived his life like that as well. He wants to live his life and go on holidays and all that kind of jazz. But so he definitely helped me early days. I know a few boys, they get drip fed every week from their managers because they have really bad, spending habits. But I've always been reasonably good with my money, and I like to have control. I don't want anyone else touching my money or not telling me I can't spend something. So I've always been pretty good that way. But it wasn't until probably my third or fourth year that I really had a look at, property and investment and all that kind of stuff, and started thinking a little bit more about that. But yeah, I was listening to your Bogut interview before, and obviously they're multi-million dollars and everyone knows and everything's publicised, but I guess the average income for an AFL football is roughly around 450k. So if you're a footballer, you generally got a little bit of money. So I'm lucky I don't have anyone coming at me or asking for money, but and it's definitely not at the levels of NBA or NFL, but I think our first year players, I think it's grown to about 120 grand a year, and that's a set wage across first round draft picks, whatever it might be. But so it's a big responsibility for 18-year-olds with that amount of money.
Well, it sounds like your dad's giving you some sage advice, though, because it's not bad to keep half and then tell you to go and live your life, so you got some experience and some memories. But I guess the financial literacy, and you would have picked that up in Andrew Bogut's conversation that we had with him, was he really prioritised going, I need to understand this myself. And from the conversations I've had with you prior to our chat today, that seems to be the path that you really prioritised as well. So can you tell us why? What did that? It sounds like Dad's had a huge impact on you, but was there some other virtual or actual mentors that were nudging you in the right direction to make sure that you understood what was going on, not just rely on everyone else?
Yeah, I think I was very almost imposter syndrome when I first got drafted. So when I looked at the average career, I was like, okay, that's what I'm planning for. So always kind of looked at that as, I might be around for 4 years. What can I get out of this? And so I was saving a lot of money, all that kind of stuff. And it took me a little bit of time, but I think in my second year, I started going to uni. So I only just completed last year a project management degree at RMIT. So I really enjoyed property development, property, all that kind of stuff. But it was probably my third year as well. I think I mentioned to you previously, it's a rival. I don't know if it's a rival podcast, but you guys are all trying to educate, I guess, the public. But John Pigeon from My Millennial Money, he used to come out to the footy club, and again, he'd educate a lot of us players on property and how to build wealth. And I spoke to him and got in a really good relationship with him, and I ended up doing one of his courses where it taught you what to look for. And are you looking for yield or capital growth? Are you buying in your name in a trust or whatever it might be, location? And that's where I really enjoyed, I guess, my journey to property, that I started learning a lot more about what my money can do and how it can grow. And I think at a young age, you look at debt, $1 million of debt, and you're like, how am I ever going to pay this off? And when that first, negative number pops up in your bank account, you're like, this is enormous. This will never, ever change, kind of thing. And it took me to understand exactly what debt was and how you could pay it off, and I guess how it grows as well, for me to be comfortable in debt and then also look to spend that money and grow my own property portfolio. it was probably through John, who still kind of mentors me with property, that gave me a bit more confidence at a young age.
Yeah, John's a good guy. I caught up with him for a catch up at the end of last year, and he was coming down earlier this year. I couldn't catch up with him, but he's definitely one of the good guys out there in terms of doing all the fundamentals right. So take us through that first sort of stage. Okay, pre-approval. Then what were you thinking about from a strategy point of view around? Are we just getting a set, a buy and hold, or are we looking to add value? Take us through sort of what you were thinking for that very first purchase.
Yeah, and what was the purpose? Was it investment or to live in?
Yeah, so initially I wanted a house to live in, and I guess my aim was to always have some other boys live with me and help pay, I guess, the mortgage off that way.
Wasn't it Kevin Sheedy who I think it was said it to, I think it was Matthew Lloyd, but maybe James Hurd. I heard it on an interview where he says, whatever you do when you've left football, you must have your home paid off. That was his advice to them. Was that?
Yeah. Well, I think actually reminds me. There's an old fella at the club called Charlie Italia who used to be a mortgage broker. He's retired now, but he's been at the club for 30 odd years, and I got a great relationship with him. And he used to say back in the day, each time you get a contract, buy a house, which, yeah, it's pretty hard in this day and age, but 20, 30 years ago, you probably could. So his whole thing was each time you sign a contract, go buy a house. And at the end of your career, you got a couple and you can sort it out that way. But so I definitely had him in my corner, and I'm pretty sure he was my mortgage broker on my first property, actually. So, but yeah, so it was literally a principal place. So I was looking around the Essendon area. And yeah, I think I just did the research. I obviously wanted to be in Essendon. It was too expensive. So then you go to the boundaries. And then, but yeah, it was a pre-approval. It was all kind of all over my head. Like, it all happened pretty quickly. The actual house that I got in the end was private sale. And I still remember on the Saturday or whatever, or Sunday, I missed out on a house that I really wanted in Coburg. And then this house popped up, and I actually had the agent trying to bid me off against myself. So I hit my max, and he kept coming back every other hour. You got to go up, you got to go up, got to go up. I've got this offer. I've got another family coming through, all this kind of stuff. And I literally could not go any higher. Then that was my max. That was my pre-approval. That's all I had. And then, I think 3 or 4 days go past, and he ends up giving me a call saying, fuck, you've done really well here. Like, I really was pushing you. Who have you got in your corner helping you out? I said, no, hang on, mate. Like, you're pushing to the max. Like, that's all I had. So I couldn't actually go any higher, even if I wanted to. But so, yeah, that was a bit of an experience. And I was actually heading away to, I think, America the day that he called me. So I had to quickly arrange for my brother to be my power of attorney so he could sign the documents and transfer the money and all that kind of stuff, which, again, was just a bit of a whirlwind. Something that I didn't realise was you can't just transfer, 100K from your bank account. Like, you have to call the bank and you have to sort it out. And so that was all,
Is that actually your money? How did you get it? Why are you moving it? Yeah.
Yeah, all that. And they're like, okay, it's valid. You can transfer for 30 minutes and that's it. And it's like, okay, shit, it's all happening.
Nice one. Yeah, that surprises me, Ben, that real estate agents would do stuff like that.
I mean a Snelling agent who's trying to get the maximum result from the vendor that he's not.
I haven't heard of anything like that before. So you're in the principal place of residence, and just as a side note, Ben lives within Cooee of Windy Hill, Kyle. So we probably should try and. He's been there for a long time, so we probably should try and get him over to Essendon rather than that other mob that he follows. But so you've got this principal place of residence. Did you get some of the boys to come and live with you to help ease the burden?
Yeah, so I bought that in 2018, so I would have been 20, 21. And I had a few mates, not footy mates, just mates from life, lived with me for 2 years. And then you quickly realise that the public, boys my age can't live with elite athletes. just different lifestyles, different agendas. So I had to work that out myself. That you can't quite, that doesn't quite work. And then I had.
You mean having the stereo on and having some mates over after going down to the pub whilst you
Oh,
were at a game the
yeah,
next day?
Friday night, and there's this.
And you talked about sleep as a priority for you.
Oh yeah, I had to learn all that stuff. I guess as all young footballers do, or even elite sportsmen, that we're not normal people. Our jobs require a lot more. So after that, I ended up getting 2 boys from the footy club live with me for a few years, which was Will Snelling and Harry Jones, and that's where I think I really enjoyed it because we're on the same schedule, same lifestyle. That was a lot of fun. So that went on for a few years.
So tell us about the progression on the property ladder then. So you got this property. Do you still have it now? Did you use it to make your next move? What happened next?
Yeah, these properties been pretty interesting. So bought it, lived in it for 4 or 5 years. I pulled out equity from that house, and I bought a house up in East Maitland, just out of Newcastle.
Newcastle, yeah.
Okay.
So that was with the help of John after I did all the research, all the work from doing the course. And then he helped me with the final steps. And so I bought a house up there. I've only seen it once after I bought it as well. So lucky he had some boots on the ground that kind of helped out with that one. And that's been a great investment, to be honest. Like I've had the same family in there for 3 years, I think, and they've signed another 2-year lease.
Yeah.
So that's been great. That was positively geared straight off the bat. I think now that interest rates have gone up, it's only a couple of $100 a month I have to chip in. So
yep,
that's been a really good one.
Purchased in your own name?
Own name, yep. Then following that, a few years later, 2022, I bought a house with my partner, now fiance, in Albert Park.
Yep.
So that's where we're living at the moment, and that was a 50-50 deposit between both of us.
We said before we push record, didn't we, Ben, that Kyle's just going through the rough suburbs of life through Albert Park. For those people that are interstate, it's fabulous real estate there, mate. But sorry, I didn't catch if the first one's still in the portfolio. So you bought East Maitland?
Yeah. So so this house has probably given me a few goes at a young age. So kept it in the portfolio, still got it. It's a fun little story, actually. So, leased it to a bunch of footy boys after that, which made it a little bit awkward because I think 2 of them got delisted and they're in a year-long contract. So all of a sudden they're like, well, I'm moving back home. I'm not paying rent. So that was a little bit of just an awkward period. And so after that, I said, okay, I'll put it out to the public, and I can't talk about this too much because there was a police investigation or ongoing police investigation, but this is where I learned the importance of insurance and having the right insurance and
right property manager by the sounds of things.
Well, yeah, I mean that was a bit of a learning curve as well, to be honest. So I leased it out to 2 individuals. They were a couple in their 60s. They did a few wrong things in my house, and there was a police raid at about 5 months in. So our first inspection was at about 6 months with the property manager, which I didn't know. I thought it was every 3, but in their contract it was 6, so not really their fault. But in the end, long story short, because I can't go into it too much, but there was about 190 grand worth of damage within the house.
Wow.
So if I didn't have the right insurance, which was malicious damage, tenant default cover, I would have been out of pocket that full.
Yeah.
Wow. So important.
And so that all occurred at the start of the footy season last year. And it only just got rented January again this year. So a long process of trying to get possession of the property back through VCAT. So that went on for a long period of time because the two individuals, one was in prison, one was, don't know. So yeah, that dragged on for a little bit, and then obviously refurbishing the house up to a standard that I could lease it again took a fair period of time with insurance as well.
And is that the one we can see in the background now?
No. So we're absolutely not. So that house, now that I leased that one back to the footy club. So instead of footy boys, it's with the club. So now they're responsible for it.
Gotcha.
And I'm managing that all off myself. I've got a couple of guys in there that are great.
There's a couple of lessons in here on several fronts, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, there's all this payout going on about how tenants are, hard dealt by their landlords and that type of thing. And here's a classic case of a couple in their 60s.
Yep.
And you're thinking, all right, well, and good suburb in terms of that they're coming into.
Yep.
And, completely are off the rails and do the damage that they do. But to your point, and then all of the effort you have to go to VCAT to get the eviction done, to get repossession of your property back. These are the control points that we sort of say, look, yeah, there's no doubt that there's 5% of landlords may not necessarily be doing the best thing for their tenants in respect of safe and quiet enjoyment. But then there's this 5% of tenants who spoil it for the rest of everyone else as well. Right? And then we get these ridiculous legislative changes that try to fix the problem for those sort of outliers. And then we have all of this bloody compliance and crap that goes with it that we can't just basically instantly get back in control of the asset that we own.
Yep.
It does drive me batty. It's why I'm the chair of the association to try and get some changes done.
And you got your political voice on too, Ben.
Well, I have to because we've got to keep the bastards honest. They really do stuff it up for everyone. When 95% or even say 90% are having safe and quiet enjoyment, and the relationship is commercial but working out okay for both parties.
Yep.
So to your point, you mentioned the Maidstone stuff up in New South Wales. Lovely tenants doing the right thing. You're probably looking after them because they're good tenants. There's a good commercial relationship going on there. You're running your private rental accommodation business and happy days. But it's the problem, that the government doesn't see it as a private business, and it is a business that we're running in terms of private rental accommodation. So I think that's an important message that is missed by media in some respects. They just want to tell the hard luck stories.
Hey, Kyle, tell us about the North Star, mate. So we've learned a lot about you here, right? So there's a pedigree in your growing up where you're seeing Dad chasing 5 properties. You've had an unusual, unconventional start to working life in a professional sporting scene, and now you've started accumulating some properties, including getting a very quick masterclass on what to not do as well as what to do. Tell us a little bit about what's drawing you forward, because you've established yourself as one of the senior leaders in that club. You are a go-to for your team for clutch moments. I desperately hope you kick a goal after the siren on Anzac Day this year. So let's just put that out there. The final siren, that is, just for clarity. So what's drawing you to a vision of where you want to go with your property and your money? Because I know that, at some point you have some demons in the back of your mind as you're just an injury away from having to act on that project management degree that you've got. But you've also got to stay optimistic about the future. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's always a bit of a challenge, I guess, as a footballer. Is you get paid really well, but it's only for a couple of years, really. If you're really lucky, then you get paid 10 years of football. But like I said, the average is only about 4. So, if you do go out and buy yourself a property, all of a sudden you're going from a wage up here to way down here. So it's one of those challenges that I guess a lot of AFL players have to face. And I guess I think I've got plenty of football left. I'm contracted for another 3, but if I look at my career, I must say I kind of look at it like I've got minimum 3 more years of football. What's my portfolio going to look like? What are my repayments going to look like? Can I afford it? And I know I won't be able to afford it. So it's been able to hang on to those properties for as long as possible, and then pump it into. I guess we're going to be living in Albert Park. We're completing a reno at the moment, so yeah, it's always a challenge. And I guess as a younger player as well, like you're saying, you might be an ACL away from your career being over, an injury, or a coach doesn't like you, and it's not like the normal public where you can just jump to another job in a similar industry and you're going to be around a similar wage. It's definitely trying. I think that's where younger players need really good accountants and managers in their corner to be able to steer them in the right direction, so they don't make these errors where they might have a great asset, a blue chip asset, but they're selling it. And, if it's only 3 or 4 years, they could be selling at a loss, especially down here with our stamp duty and all the other fees associated with it. And you don't want that. So I'd love to be able to have a property, principal place, pretty well paid off, and at least one investment property. If I can have that, then I'm super stoked. And that gives me a little bit more freedom post-football to really dive into the career that I want, not that I need just to pay the bills kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's important. We talk about, in general PAYG roles that we want to see a household have at least 6 months of buffer. In the case that you're talking about there, Kyle, in terms of for those young guys who are on 2-year contracts or whatever it may be, if they do decide to jump into a property, which is great, their buffers will probably need to be a little bit higher. So the use of their offset accounts and making sure that they've got a runway for 12 months so they can restructure themselves. And I know that the Players Association is focused in on that in terms of careers and life outside of football. And I think that's an important, message, right? Because ultimately you're only in football for, to your point, on average 4 years. And, there's people like yourself and Scott Pendlebury and, Steel Sideboard who have been in the system for 20 plus years, right? And ultimately they're making that 4 years look the average. But a lot of the bulk of the players are probably only on 2 or 3 year contracts and then they're out the door.
Yep.
So I think that's sage advice to anyone in that professional sport area that if you are going to go into property because it's a slow burning asset, you want to basically make sure you've got those higher buffers.
Yep.
See what he did there, Kyle? He had to make 2 Collingwood references there. That was a bit...
Yeah, I like being included in the same conversation as those two players.
Well, you're in the mix, aren't you? Surely.
Yeah.
I think Pendle's. You can't put me in the same.
Yeah, he's in a league of his own. Even I can acknowledge that, even though...
Come on, Steele's not too far behind either, just quietly. Can I ask, Kyle, who did you follow growing up in footy? Who was your team?
I was Bulldogs growing up, so...
Doggies.
Yeah, had no choice. Whole family went for him, actually. So, yeah, not until I was 18 and got drafted did everyone switch across to the Bombers.
Did you have a little smile on your face when they got over the line? Back when they won the premiership.
Yeah, I actually took my old man there, so he obviously went.
That would have been a magic day.
50-odd years, and my grandfather passed away in 2015, and he went for the Bulldogs for his whole life.
Wow.
So he passed away at about 80, I think. So, so it was a pretty special moment for me just to be able to take my dad there. When the final siren went, he was in tears, and it was a pretty special moment.
Beautiful,
and it was an incredible game. So I quite enjoyed it just as a spectator.
Hey Kyle, it's been magic talking to you. I actually followed Essendon in the 80s. So because living in Perth. Back then we had a waffle side, which was South Fremantle, and then we used to get the scores come over from the VFL, and my cousin, same age as me, he was a mad Hawthorn supporter, so I was an Essendon supporter, so I really enjoyed in the 80s, and then obviously West Coast came in 87, and then Freo came in 95, and given I was very much a Fremantle origin. But look, it's been really great to sort of unpack, and I think one of the things that I was really keen, I think we've had a really good swing at it today, is, we've spoken to a number of professional athletes on this podcast, Matt Strama and Tom Simons and Chat Townsend from the NRL, but just to get that AFL perspective. But it's the same stuff. And I think what I was keen to do today is you are in a position of fortune and privilege, given sorry, my little puppy there. Given that you have this unique opportunity, but you're also, to your point at the beginning, you're human, and I was really fascinated to hear some of the things that's going on for you, because it's sometimes it probably feels like you're an actor in a movie, where people have opinions about you that don't know anything about you, but the fact that you have a big income this year, and you hope it's going to be there next year, and you hope it's going to be there the year after, and it's just some of those moving parts that I find fascinating, and we've been able to tease out today. My final question for you is, what is it about your story that you were hoping to share the most? Where do you think the most value is from your experience as a property investor that our community can benefit from the most?
I definitely believe, similar to Andrew Bogut, is try and learn it yourself. I think it's the old, I guess, teach a man fish kind of theory, but I just felt originally looking at property, looking at debt, just being like, it's too big of a beast, really, to try and wrap your head around. And obviously, we have no education going through school, so for me, it was all about education and understanding that you can do it at different levels. Like you said, I'm very fortunate to be in the position I am. But I look at my dad. My dad wasn't. He worked really hard for what he's got, so it can definitely be done. But for me, it's all about education. It's using your podcast, your books. I think the first book I picked up was actually The Barefoot Investor. And then the second book was How to Retire on $2,000 a week. So for me, it's all about education. It's using the resources, podcasts, mentors, understanding what you can and can't do, learn from other people's failures, so then you don't have to do it yourself.
Well, but I also love what you've just also talked about to us, Kyle, in the sense that you've used John to help you from a buyer's agency point of view. You made references earlier about good accountants and good people around you to get that supplementary advice. But you're right. It's basically knowing that when you're in a conversation about your money, that you have some understanding about it, because you still use the broker and you've still used all of those, the A team around you. But your point being is that no one's going to pull the wool over your eyes because you're not educated on it, right? And because you're a high earning sports person, someone's not going to basically take advantage of you because you're going to have that sort of baseline knowledge that keeps them accountable. And now, obviously, with your your building project management degree and work that you've done there, my final question is, where do you see that taking you? Are you going to go and work with Job Watson and sort of start working in his property business, or are you going to branch out and become a developer? Is there any sort of aspirations in that space?
Yeah, I think just touched on the previous question as well. I think after I learned it and I was buying a property with my partner, I had to try and teach her as well. And I definitely felt learning, like she couldn't learn from me. Like she wouldn't listen, you get emotional. I'm just like, why aren't you getting this? It's that simple. So I think it is going to external resources to actually learn it and not listening essentially to friends and family. I think take their advice on board, but go away and do it yourself.
The best wisdom you can get from the Bible, mate, is you can't be a prophet in your own village, mate.
Yeah, I like that. What was your question again?
Oh no, just so then the next phase, so after, hopefully, yes, you got another 5 or plus years that you're sort of saying in your footy career.
And gets the Anzac Day medal. What's that one called again? Is it just the Anzac Day medal?
Yeah, it's the Anzac Day medal. That's enough. That's all it needs to be. It's a pretty special medal.
Yeah, true. I got lost in the fact that I was trying to hook into you.
I think something that I was very keen on was obviously finishing my degree whilst playing football. Being at a big club like Essendon, they have such great networks. So I think I've been able to network really well throughout my 11 years so far at Essendon, where I know that, I've got a degree. My focus right now is obviously raising a little girl, but it is finding some work experience. And I've got a few people kind of lined up for some coffee catch-ups, but they're mostly, developers. So as I mentioned, we're completing a reno in our house at the moment. So that's been a really good journey of learning that. Obviously, buying the house, going through the planning stage, building, dealing with builders, all that, a bit of an experience. And I think post football, I definitely would see myself in like a property development or a project management kind of firm. I think I really like the client side of it. I toyed a little bit with going from a builder's license and whether that was something, but I ended up deciding there's too much risk and liability involved in that, especially if I don't have a trade and that experience that a lot of the good builders do. So I kind of pivoted a little bit to have a look at the client side of it, almost being a consultant.
I think that's important, right? There is something certainly about building and hands-on tool experience that, you know, in a building project, you're making 10,000 decisions, right? If anyone's done a serious build a home or done a serious renovation, there are literally thousands of decisions that are being made. So I think, mate, I look forward to seeing where that goes. And I was obviously a Pie supporter who was at the very first Anzac Day clash in 1990. That very, very first day, 100,000 people, whatever it was there, and
A draw.
saw Sav Rocker kick 6, Bucks spray one at the end to sort of keep that famous draw. But it's the 25th anniversary of the Anzac Day clash, so I'm sure there'll be another 100,000 there. And as much as I want to wish you all the best and best of luck for every other game of the year, but maybe that one I'll probably still say go Pies if that's all right.
Hey, Kyle, don't worry about it because Collingwood supporters can't add up because if it's 1990 was the first one and it's 2025, it means the 35th anniversary. But
35th, my bad.
But if they all count like that, we've got nothing to worry about. But I'm on the opposite side, mate. I hope you win. But hey, look, I've got a little smoky for you. I know you can't bet, but if you could, I got this little smoky for you. I think Freo for the flag in 25. So there you go. Yeah,
I think they can get it done out of their state.
I like that. Yeah. So
agree.
if all the listeners, if all the audio listeners could see, Kyle just took this big sort of step back there.
Lean back and went, how do I be polite here and say no way?
Yeah, no, he was very polite. So, mate, it's been a real privilege and a pleasure to chat with you.
Fun.
I think you're super articulate. You obviously got a very good head on your shoulders to match your athletic talents. So, thank you for coming on and sharing and giving us that unique insight that a lot of us who've never played professional sports don't understand. That here's the pros side of it, but here's a little bit of the other stuff that a lot of people don't think. So that's been really cool, mate. But on behalf of everyone here at the Property Couch, mate, thanks for joining us today.
No, I really appreciate you guys having me on, and I guess I reached out. I appreciate what you guys do, and I think education is power. So I love it. Keep it up.
Thanks, Kyle. You're a gentleman.
Cheers, guys.
There you go, mate. What an incredible human Kyle was.
Yeah, I mean, just really relatable, living a good life, recognise the privilege and opportunity that he's got, but also making the most of it. And when he was talking about potentially people's motivations in their football, his was really clear. It's just that he just loves what he does. It's a privilege to be able to do it. He does it very, very well. He's a great player. So from that point of view, but he's maximising the opportunity that's come off the back of that, not only what he's doing now, and obviously finishing their home and starting a family, but he's also got those networks and he's also set himself up with some skill sets and some knowledge that's going to take him into the next level of his life once his footy career, hopefully, is very long, but once he finishes, he's got another basically, sort of string in his bow that he can call on.
Mate, there's always method in our madness, Ben, when we talk to people to ask how it all started for them, what were the messages they got over dinner tables and all that sort of stuff. And I love observing some of the patterns and some of the norms that people get. And to hear Kyle talk about his dad wanted 5 properties, that's just Kyle's baseline now. Like, he would just be drawn towards 5 properties as if that's normal. And whereas people who don't have that sort of stuff growing up, they've got 2 choices, don't they? They can do what's normal, whatever the family tree dictated prior, or they can make decisions to actually elevate to a different level. But I love that. So baseline for Kyle would be 5 properties. That would be a no-brainer for him. And then you can obviously see as he continues to build his skills and his financial literacy that I've got no doubt he'll want to continue to do that. But it was a wonderful chat. And as we said in the interview, Ben, it's kind of in a country that lives in the tall poppy paradigm, it was kind of nice to hear him just, no one's sort of going, oh, poor Kyle, you're highly paid and living in Albert Park, but just the fact that it's not all easy. Like he's privileged, he's grateful, he acknowledges where he's at, but he's also got human emotions and
human struggles.
And he's got anxieties and insecurities that come around with that. So that was pretty cool. So well done, Kyle. Thanks for joining us on the show. I think our audience would have got a lot out of hearing a lot of what you had to say today. Hey, my life hack today, Ben, is a strategic way to maximize your time off in 2025, because there's a couple of unique things happen, particularly in April. But I want to show you how to get 40 days off this year using 15 days of annual leave, right?
Ooh, so everyone's going to rush in for their annual leave. I can see this happening.
Well, I've strategically said it at this point in time because there's one particular part that you've missed already, which was January. But for some people who are strategic, they'll catch this. But here's how you could have done it, Ben. If you had because there's a public holiday. So here's a combination of public holidays, weekends, and annual leave to get the 40 days. So here we go. Right. New Year's Day was on a Wednesday, January the 1st. So if you had taken leave on Thursday and Friday, Thursday the 2nd and Friday the 3rd, you would have got the extra time off there from Wednesday to Sunday. Then Australia Day happened on a Monday. So all you need to do is take the Friday off, the 24th, and you would have had a 4-day break.
4-day break.
But here's the corker, right? And some of the people would have already known this, but unusually Easter and Anzac Day are bunched together, right?
Correct.
So if you actually take leave at Easter, the 14th to the 17th, which is Monday to Easter Thursday, if you like, you'll get 10 days off because it'll be from April 12th to 21st. But there's some public holidays in there, so you only use 4 days leave. 10 days off for 4 days leave.
It's not a bad return.
Follow the following week, Anzac Day, you can get a 4-day break because the public holiday is on the Friday. You take the Monday off as well. There's 4 days, bang. So there's a weekend, 1 annual leave, 1 public holiday. King's birthday, you can get 4 days again because that happens on Monday the 9th of June, except West Australia and Queensland. You'd have to tailor that for those states. 4 days there for 1 annual leave. And then at Christmas, if you take the 22nd to the 24th off, and the 29th to the 31st, you'll get 16 days off, Ben. So here's the summary of everything I just said. Yep. Annual leave used would be 15 days. Public holidays would be 9. Weekends would be 16 for a total of 40 days. So for those of you looking for
very clever
work-life balance, there is the life hack to double your time off whilst keeping your annual leave balance healthy, Ben. Now,
did you come up with that yourself, Bryce?
Hey?
Did you come up with that yourself?
Yeah, I did. Well, no, I've seen it.
You curated that information, yeah.
Curated it. I've seen it a number of times, and the savvy folks would be already on it. But here's the deal. You'd better get in quick because I'm sure there's only bandwidth for a certain amount of people in your departments and your business.
Am I opening the factory today? Why isn't anyone?
Yeah, no one's here. Well, actually, all the podcast listeners are not here, but everyone else is. So there you go. That's my life hack today, Ben. 40 for the price of 15. There you go. What's making property news?
Yes, Bryce. Well, we saw the big news from the RBA. Cash rate went down 25 basis points. We've been waiting a long time for it. I predicted it was going to happen actually in 2024, and it didn't happen at all. And obviously you can check out Evan and I as we wax lyric on all the things relating to the reasons why the RBA did that. So you can check out that episode from Tuesday of this week. But here is the important thing around how it relates to property. What I wanted to make sure that everyone understood is, it's not like, this whole dam wall's been building up and there's this huge amount of demand. Property prices were actually slowing down. So in terms of that, demand wasn't there. Now, what we expect to happen, 2 things here, right, is we do expect, if you imagine just a big weir, we do expect that, sort of the doors are opening and it's letting out a little bit more demand, right? So we are going to see that. But what's going to probably put sort of be the icing on the cake here for this rate cut is usually at the start of the year, people are making big decisions. Okay, so they're making big property decisions or big decisions about life. Now, if this rate cut had to come at the middle of the year and people are in flow and it's just they've got too much on, they may not have done anything with it. but we do expect that this will have a little bit of a kicker when it comes to the demand side, because it's actually happened and in really the first month that everyone's gets right back into the flow of work and those types of things. So that is just a little observation. And remember, at the end of this month, we're going to do our prediction show and also recap on what we said last year. So, but that is potentially obviously putting more pressure on the demand side. So that is definitely putting a little bit more pressure in terms of where prices are going to go in 2025.
Okay, well, there'll be a few relieved folks out in the community, Ben, to see that interest rates are actually on a trend that hopefully is their friend. So good news. But hopefully that's helped a number of our community, Ben. But what an incredible show we've had today. We've covered a fair bit of ground, particularly with our special guest today. So another thank you to Kyle Langford for joining us on the Property Couch. Very much appreciated, Ben. But mate, next week, you and me, we are going to dust off the crystal ball and have a little look over the hill, aren't we?
We are. It is our predictions episode for the outlook for property in 2025. So I've been doing all my research, collating all my information, looking at the latest data. So we've got plenty to share next week.
And we always look under the bonnet to see what we said last year, Ben, just to see how we're tracking. So we stay transparent on that as well. But mate, until next week.
Knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it.
See you next week, folks.